This is a prophetic event that could happen even in the year 2021. But the truth is, no one knows when it will happen, this next year or the year after. We must always be ready. Let us travel with the recording angel on the day of the rapture. A couple gets ready for bed, just like every other night. They say goodnight to their teenage son and kiss each other goodnight and fall asleep, just like every other night. During the night, the husband wakes up suddenly and reaches over to hug his wife, and he only feels her nightgown. He goes into his son's room and he sees only his pajamas on the bed. He then calls his wife's phone, only to find out that it is under her pillow. He goes outside to look at the car, and both cars are there as it is snowing. He begins to realize what has happened as he stands outside in the middle of the night in the snow. There is a lot of commotion in his neighborhood as dogs are barking and car alarms are ringing. Let us travel with the recording angel on the day of the rapture. A husband, who was working out of town when it happened, is driving to his wife's church in tears. His face is glazed with sweat. His knees are weak, and his arms are trembling with fear from what he just saw. He drives in the city, and he is seeing abandoned cars in the middle of the road. His fear is becoming more and more of a reality. He arrives at the church and walks to the pulpit and falls to his knees, and his mind goes back to what he saw when he came home from his walk. An empty house with his wife's and children's clothes and mobile phones lying on the floor. He cries out to God, "Lord, I should have listened. I should have listened to my wife. She told me this day would come, but I didn't listen. I don't want to be left behind. God, save me. God, save me. God, save me." What am I speaking of? I am speaking of 1 Thessalonians 4, verses 16 to 18. "For the Lord himself shall descend from heaven with a shout, with the voice of the archangel, and with the trumpet of God. And the dead in Christ shall rise first. Then we which are alive and remain shall be caught up together with them in the clouds, to meet the Lord in the air. And so shall we be ever with the Lord. Wherefore comfort one another with these words." It is quite unfortunate that only a few churches remind their members of the rapture. This message is a reminder to us that this world is not our home, but that we are only sojourners and passers-by therein. The rapture has no specific date. It is going to be the most sudden event that has ever been experienced on earth. It will happen in split seconds. The trumpet of the archangel will announce the rapture. The trumpet will be so loud that the dead in Christ will hear it and resurrect from the dead with a glorified body, with which will be granted a supernatural transition to meet the Lord in the skies. There is a belief that the rapture will be secret, but I would disagree. There is nothing more public than what is described in 1 Thessalonians 4, verses 16 to 18. There is nothing more public than something that will be announced with a shout, and with the voice of an archangel, and the trumpet of God. This phrase, "caught up," the Koine Greek text uses the verb form harpage samitha, which means "we shall be caught up, taken away," with the connotation that this is a sudden event. This word indicates a forceful jab, and that's what the rapture will be like. Jesus will take us away suddenly, forcefully. If you have lost a loved one, and he or she died in Christ, you will someday see them in the sky. While there will be a lot of commotions on earth, all believers will rejoice and feast with the Lord in the air. At rapture, we will see the Lord physically. This event will make us appreciate all that the Lord has done for us. We will be thankful for the death of Christ on the cross, which led to our eternal salvation. We will also know that our labors and perseverance on earth are not in vain. In the Bible, Paul also says that we will be changed in the twinkling of an eye. In a moment, you will have a glorious shining body. What pain or illness are you struggling with right now? What medicine are you taking? Have you seen your body decay over the year? And have you seen yourself not move around the same way you used to? The Bible tells us literally, in the twinkling of an eye, your body will be transformed into a glorified body. I really look forward to this day, don't you? A church congregation full of true born-again children of God will be praying, and then suddenly, Jesus takes them on the day of rapture to be with him in the clouds, and they look at one another with their shiny new bodies. Doesn't that excite you? To have a brand new body? You will be totally transformed. Another great feature of the rapture is recorded in Matthew 24 verse 3. Then shall two be in the field. The one shall be taken, and the other left. Two women shall be grinding at the mill. The one shall be taken, and the other left. The rapture is going to be a highly selective event. The righteous will be caught up, and the unrighteous will be left behind. That one of two will be taken, while the other will be left, does not mean that God will be doing a random selection of people. If two believers are together when the trumpet sounds, the both of them will be caught up. But a husband and his wife could be sleeping in the same bed, and the husband will be caught up, while his wife will be left behind, if she is not right with God. The salvation of one person would not be able to save another on that day. Matthew 25 verse 42 enjoins us to keep watch for the rapture, because we do not know the day or the hour it will happen. It is therefore our responsibility to watch by living a ready life of holiness and righteousness. We must evaluate our lives on a daily basis to know if we are still on the Lord's side. Imagine the trumpet sounds now. Are you sure you will be caught up? If your answer is no, then you must deal with every form of obstacle. It is only sin that can cut off our spiritual wings and stop us from ascending to meet with the Lord. Rapture is an experience that all believers should crave for. Watch and prepare for it.
Believers should not pay attention to any false teaching on the fact that there is no such thing as a rapture. The Bible has given us enough proof to show that a rapture is an event that will undoubtedly come to pass. The Bible gave us accounts of two men who never tasted death, but were transfigured. Enoch walked with God to the point that he took him from the earth. Genesis 5 verse 24. Enoch walked faithfully with God. Then he was no more, because God took him away. Elijah was also caught up from the earth by a chariot of fire. 2 Kings 2 verse 11. As they were walking along and talking together, suddenly a chariot of fire and horses of fire appeared and separated the two of them, and Elijah went up to heaven in a whirlwind. If God did it before, He can do it again. There are no impossibilities with God. Believers should, therefore, get themselves prepared for Elijah and Enoch's experience at the rapture of the saints. The transition of Elijah and Enoch is a biblical proof that rapture will definitely come to pass. We must watch and wait earnestly for the rapture event by living a holy life. There is not unholy that would be associated with Christ. If we would be counted worthy at the rapture of the saints, we must live our lives with the consciousness that rapture could take place at any time. No one knows the day in which this event will happen. Blessed are those who will be found ready. Are you ready?